Hey guys, Brandon Dawson here from the Tribe of Christians. I want to thank you guys for tuning in and watching. Now, what I want to do is I wanted to share with you guys the dreams that I have been having specifically concerning New York City and the Northeast Coast that concern fires, disasters, and the tidal waves. Now, since 2017, I have been having several reoccurring dreams concerning New York City and our northeastern coast in the United States since April 14th of 2017. Now, in fact, the very first publication I made on our ministry website was actually concerning those dreams concerning New York City, and also a dream I had concerning COVID-19. It was these very dreams and these visions that I was having that initially led me to establish the Tribe of Christians ministries to get these messages out. Now, since then, since the first dream, I have had a total of 10 dreams, maybe 11 if you include another one that I've had, but I'm going to say about 10 dreams in total concerning New York City. And one of them was actually on December 22nd of 2017, which was about COVID-19, the plague that was coming, concerning specifically even targeting Christians and churches. Now, I'm not going to get into 100% specific details in each and every single dream that I've had, so I will list the links for each of them in the About section and also in the comment section if you guys want to go back and look at them. Now, what I do want to do is actually focus on the common elements that I have seen in each of these dreams. Some of the things that I have dreamt about that have remained consistent throughout all the dreams. Now, although each dream has had a bit of a different element to it, and a little bit of a different perspective, but there are several elements that are consistent that happen in each of these dreams, and that's what I want to focus on and talk about the common and consistent themes throughout these dreams, what they mean, and why I believe they are occurring. Now, the first dream that I had, as I said, was actually on April 14th of 2017. And the last dream that I've had concerning New York City was February 19th of this year, 2022. So these dreams are still present and currently happening. I'm still having them. Now, each dream, they always occur near and around the same time of day. And this is about 4 to 4:30 in the late afternoon or the early evening. In one of the dreams, when the fires begin happening, I'm actually getting ready for work, which my shift actually starts at 6:30 p.m. And I see the fires happening. I look to see what time it is, and it's always right around 4:30 p.m. Now, in most of the dreams, it's usually right around the same time of year also, near the holiday months of Christmas, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and even possibly New Year's, where I see Christmas trees, I see Christmas lights, things like that. However, there are other dreams that I have had where I did not see Christmas stuff or holiday themes. So I can't say 100% certain that the events or the attacks will begin in the holiday or winter months. But one thing that I can say for 100% certainty is that in almost every single dream, the events always begin, always, around the evening time, 4:30 p.m., just before sunset. And in every dream that I've had, they always begin the exact same way. They always end the exact same way. They always begin with fires throughout the city, and then they end with a massive tidal wave hitting the city. Now, the very first dream that I had, on April 14, 2017, I saw the face of the Statue of Liberty, and it was in a dark storm cloud. It was very ominous. It was frightening. And when I saw it, I looked towards Manhattan, and I could see people in massive panic. I also saw rubble of buildings on the streets of Times Square. Now, in my second dream, I was actually in a vision. And in that vision, I was in this random strange place that wasn't familiar to me at that time. And I was wandering around a neighborhood. I was asking people for directions to figure out where in the heck I was and how to get home. I was even looking up at street signs and seeing the names of streets, and I couldn't figure out exactly where it was I was at. So I knew for a fact that I was not in New York, which at that time of that dream, my wife and I were actually living in Queens of New York City. But the place I was at in this dream or this vision, it was very peaceful. There was sunlight, there was a lot of grass, there were children playing, and there was a lot of laughter. And so at one point, I was actually standing in the middle of an intersection at this crossroads in this neighborhood. And looking up, I lifted up a prayer and I asked the Lord, where is Rockaway, which is actually on the outskirts of Queens. It's a subdivision just near JFK Airport. And when I asked that, I instantly saw in a direct vision right before me the area of Rockaway, New York City, and all I could see was the ocean. I just saw water, and I saw debris floating on the top of the surface, and then I woke from that vision. Now, at that time, I had no idea, but 2 years later from that vision, my wife and I would actually move to Charlotte, North Carolina, which actually became a partial fulfillment of that vision. So in another dream, I was in a restaurant in Manhattan, and I was dining out. It was, as always, around evening time, around 4:30 to 5. And I was getting ready to pay for my meal, and I start hearing panic coming from outside of the restaurant. And I can look out the windows, and I can see people running and screaming. And so I get up and I go outside, and I look, and I saw this massive panic in the streets, just complete fear and chaos. I saw that buildings were on fire all over the place. And I saw that there were these projectiles that were on fire falling from the sky, and they were falling from buildings. Now, I don't know if the projectiles were like missiles or rockets, or if they were just falling debris from the buildings themselves, but they were on fire, and there were these massive fires that were happening. And I saw people fleeing to the ATM machines, trying to take out as much money as they could from their banks. I also saw that there were these other people that were robbing those people at the ATMs. And I saw massive looting occurring in the stores. It looked very similar to what happened during the George Floyd riots that we saw throughout the entire summer of 2020. Now, in another dream I had, I was actually in Manhattan, and it was very similar time, as always, in the late afternoon or early evening. And again, I see massive fires happening throughout all of New York City, all 5 boroughs, not just Manhattan, but also Brooklyn, the Bronx, Queens, Staten Island, even as far out as Long Island. And these fires are so massive that it seemed that the entire city just was burning, and the entire sky above New York City was on fire. It was red and orange, like what we've seen from all the wildfires in California that caused the skies to look red. And I saw people just trying to get out and flee by plane. They were going to JFK Airport, which is all the way in Queens. But in the airports, all the planes were grounded. They couldn't take off and they couldn't fly because of all the smoke. And then I saw people desperately. I even saw them driving their cars, trying to drive through the fences at these airports. And they were climbing the fences, doing whatever they could to get in. It looked kind of similar to the events that happened in Afghanistan when we recklessly pulled out of Afghanistan. You saw the video and the images of all those people just trying to get out, running out to the runways and jumping on the planes. It kind of looked like that. And then I looked and I saw that people were, when they realized that they couldn't get out by plane, they were trying to flee by boat. And I saw that all these people were trying to flee by boat. There were ferries that were trying to leave, trying to take people out of the city. But when I looked out into the distance, I saw this huge, massive tidal wave that was coming straight for the city. And it was heading, it was extremely massive and very wide. It was heading towards lower Manhattan, where the harbor is, the Hudson River, all that stuff where the Statue of Liberty is, and where Wall Street is. And I knew that people weren't going to be able to escape to get out of the city. Now, in other dreams, like I said, I did see it was near Christmas time, and there were Christmas lights, Christmas trees. And one specific dream, I had looked up and I saw that there were fires happening in the higher levels of skyriser buildings. And so, in another dream I had, my wife and I were out on Long Island, and we were driving near the coast, out in Long Island, and you could see the ocean out from the windows. And we were looking out, and we saw this huge storm that was rising up over the ocean, and the sky began to turn very dark. It began to rain very heavily, and in the dream, I remember just having this foreknowledge of what was coming, just knowing. And I was horrified to realize that we were in New York and that we weren't going to escape, that there was no way out. And I just knew that we weren't supposed to be there. And so all I could think of was to tell my wife that we needed to get to higher ground if we were going to have any chance at all, because we couldn't get out of the city in time. And in this dream, I also saw military personnel. I saw military vehicles. And it was like the National Guard had been called up when a hurricane happens. And they had been placing barricades and sandbags and stuff like that, different places. And while I was observing this, I also had this foreknowledge. I just knew, and I could see that this storm was attacking 4 cities. And it was attacking and destroying 4 cities along the Northeast coast, specifically New York City, Boston, Washington, D.C., and Baltimore. And so while my wife and I were still in the car, a huge, massive wave comes barreling over us. And the only thing I could think to do was just pray. And we just embraced each other and prayed, knowing that we probably weren't going to make it. And then when the waves came over us, I saw that everything was covered. Cars were completely beneath the ocean. Buildings, skyrises were underneath the ocean. Towns were completely covered. Everything was underneath the water. And I've also had other dreams where I didn't specifically see New York City, but what I saw were in the spiritual realms concerning principalities over these cities, Northeast coast, and specifically dealing with the White House. And then also in other dreams, my wife and I have had concerning specifically the Statue of Liberty, where we saw the Statue of Liberty completely underneath the water. And the only thing that was visible was just the very tip of her torch. And if you go and look from the ground up to the torch, is actually approximately about 300 to 305 feet. So that would mean that whatever this is, something has to have caused it to be a wave of at least 300 feet. So a lot of these dreams and these words have evolved into what I have called the Northeast Coast prophecies. Now, a lot of people, a ton of people, including some major prominent evangelists, they have also had these dreams concerning New York. Dave Wilkerson, he had a dream that he called the 1,000 fires in New York City. Evangelist Perry Stone from the Manifesto cast has talked about several of these dreams, tidal waves and fires happening. Prophetic evangelist Chuck Pierce from Texas, Cindy Jacobs, Jeremiah Johnson. Almost all of these people have had similar dreams like this. So I know that I'm not the only one. And in 2019, on January 22nd of 2019, what happened was New York became the very first state in our nation to officially pass late-term abortion, actually signing it into state law, allowing for an abortion to occur not only in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy, but all the way up to the baby's due date. And since then, as of April of this year, 7 other states have also followed, with Colorado becoming the last state, the 8th state this year, and allowing for late-term abortion with almost completely no oversight. Now, when this happened at New York City's passing of late-term abortion in 2019, the Lord gave me a very detailed prophetic word concerning specifically New York and New York City, that he would bring judgment against New York and the churches who have been involved in these abortion movements and also with the LGBT movements and things like that in New York City. Now, that word was given to me just literally maybe about a week and a half from January 22nd of 2019. And I didn't, in fact, actually publish that word until March 5th of 2019. And so in that word, the Lord said that he would begin to carry out judgment against New York within 1 year. And in that word, the Lord said that he would send a sign that would cause a massive exodus of people to flee out of New York City, and that he would remove his presence from that city. And after that sign was carried out, he said he would completely destroy that city and it would never be rebuilt. And so what happened? Well, 1 year later, literally to the date, 1 year later, January 22nd of 2020, on the anniversary of Roe v. Wade and also on the anniversary of passing late-term abortion, the United States announced its first official COVID-19 case in Seattle. And then exactly 1 year later, in the very month of March, when we published that word, okay, March 11, 2020, COVID-19 was declared a global pandemic. And New York City literally became the very focal point of the pandemic in our nation. September of 2020, the Lord revealed to me how long that the pandemic would actually last. And he showed me that it would last for approximately 2 years. And although the COVID-19 national emergency has not officially ended, many of its mandates have been ended, beginning with the Supreme Court's ruling against the COVID vaccine mandates on January 13th of 2022. And then also April 18th, with a federal court ruling against the mask mandates was struck down. So on a large part, the pandemic really did come to an end after 2 years. And so even at the conclusion of the 2020 census, there were a lot of articles that came out about this, that there was such a huge, massive exodus of people out of New York City and New York that New York even lost congressional seats because of a huge population decrease. Now, I believe that these things are directly related to abortion, with New York City essentially being the epicenter of sin in this nation. Now, some of the most horrific laws that we have ever witnessed pass in our nation came forth from that city. And when you look at Scripture concerning certain nations and empires, even if you look at the Bible, there's always a consistent theme that the Lord says concerning the nations and empires and at their judgments, and when they come to an end and when prophecies will be fulfilled. You always hear this phrase concerning Matthew 24 at the second coming of Jesus. But a lot of people don't realize that this phrase, this verse actually exists throughout the entire Bible, throughout the Old Testament. Genesis 15:16, concerning the promise that the Lord gives Abraham, concerning his descendants being returned to the promised land. The Lord tells Abraham that it will occur in the fourth generation, with the fulfillment or the fullness of the iniquity of sins of the Amorites. When the fullness of when the iniquity of the sins of the Amorites is reached. So God used the nation of Israel to bring judgment against the Amorites, and that's when he brought them out of Egypt. Genesis 18:20, concerning Sodom and Gomorrah. You hear a very similar thing being mentioned concerning the outcry of the city, the sins being reached to a fullness. Jeremiah 25:12, okay, at the judgment of Babylon and King Nebuchadnezzar and its conquest against Israel, the Lord said, when 70 years are complete, I will punish the king of Babylon and that nation, the land of the Chaldeans, for their guilt, declares the Lord. I will make it an everlasting dissolution. And that came to pass through the Persian Empire, when the fullness of the sins of that nation were reached. Same thing is said concerning Persia and Greece, the Roman empires. Daniel talks about it in 8:23-24. The wording specifically mentions is a fullness of sin being reached. And so I believe late-term abortion is or was the tipping point, the final act that would bring the fullness of iniquities of these cities, or specifically New York City, into pass. And I believe that's partially why we have seen such corruption occurring even greater over our nation, including what's happened in the 2020 elections, all for the purpose, I believe, for the Lord to put an end to the horrific corruption and the sin that's influenced this nation. So I don't believe that this is going to be the end of the United States. But I do believe that it will be an end for those specific cities, and even more so, the Democratic Party. So everything that the Lord has said to me, everything that he has shown me in all these dreams and these events, they are coming to pass. With the sign of COVID-19 actually coming to a conclusion, I believe it means that perhaps the disasters, the destruction that's coming from New York City in our northeast coast is going to start occurring very soon. Now, if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns about this, anything at all, please feel free to get in touch with me. You can send me an email or just get in touch with me through our website. Or feel free to leave your thoughts or questions right in the comment section of this video, especially if you guys have also had similar words or dreams. I would love to hear what your thoughts are on this. Now, regardless of whatever happens, just be in prayer. Ask for guidance. Ask for the Lord to reveal the truth to you. Do some research on this and pray how you should prepare for what is coming, especially if you are living in those areas. So above it all, the Bible tells us not to be afraid or be anxious, but to lift up prayer, to trust the Lord in the midst of all of this. So as always, guys, I pray you just stay encouraged, stay hopeful, keep running your race, keep doing good, keep fighting the good fight of faith, and do not give up.